What is up, my YouTube tennis family? It's so good to see you all again. I'm your friendly neighborhood coach Jose, and in this episode I've got something very highly sought after. One of the most common questions I get in tennis. Let's check it out. One of the most common questions I've had over my career of coaching is how to hit high balls, particularly the deep high balls, but in general, how to hit the high balls. I guarantee you, at some stage during your tennis journey, you would have struggled through those high balls. Whether you're a beginner and you're just going through that right now, or an intermediate as well, or you're a high level advanced player and you've been through that and you're glad to overcome it now. We're going to touch on those high balls today and how you can overcome that fear maybe of higher balls when they're coming to you. Now, before I go any further in this episode, I want to put a little disclaimer in here because there's a few different ways of how you can overcome this, with one of the main ones being grips. If you're changing your grip slightly, and I'll try and touch on it really quick, but with this episode, I'm going to be working mainly with the Eastern forehand grip and slightly sometimes to the semi-Western. Now, you could use the Western, but I'm not really going to touch on that one too much today. So I just thought I'd put that little disclaimer in here because there's a few different ways, just in case anybody in the comments were like, oh, no, that's not how you do it. Because there are a couple of different ways of overcoming this, but I'm going to show you the easiest way. Let's go. So step number one, make sure that you load. And I should mention as well that I'm going to be using the Eastern forehand grip for this video. Now, if you don't know what grips are, I made a video, you can go check it out up the top here and find out what all the grips are and what's best for you. Now, I'm not going to tell you all about the grips in this video. I'm just going to say the Eastern forehand or semi-Western are probably the two better ones for what I'm about to explain in this video. Now, grip sorted, stance sorted, so I'm making sure that I've got feet apart. I'm using the open stance here and making sure I can get low. And now I know this is a high ball that we're talking about, but I still want to load and drive up into the ball. Now, I know one of the hardest things is actually timing the ball. So when that ball is coming, whether it's moving slowly or fast, you want to make sure you put yourself in the best possible position. So you need to keep your feet moving. You want to hear, if you're on a hard court, hear those squeaky steps on the ground. You'll hear the professional players do it all the time. Make sure that you can hear your footwork on the hard court. Even if you're on a synthetic grass or grass court or clay court, you want to try and hear those little pitter patters of your feet moving. Usually pretty quiet, and you can hear your feet on the court. If you're somewhere loud, then, well, I can't help you much on that one. You just got to try and feel your feet moving then. Make sure you keep your feet moving to adjust when the ball comes and hits the ground, so you can move in those little steps to put yourself in the best possible position. If you're taking those big long strides, you could very easily overstep the ball and get too close, or be too far away from the ball still. Make sure you're moving your feet constantly. The next thing you need to make sure that you do is step in and hit the ball. Don't stay back, don't wait for the ball to come to you. You must step in, hit the ball and drive through. If you're staying back, your momentum is no longer able to drive into the ball. You want to make sure that you're using constant momentum in tennis. Step in and crush that ball. In terms of timing, if that ball is bouncing up high, there's two options. Option one is the option I prefer and I try to teach my students, is making sure that they're taking the ball on the rise. Now, you don't have to take it as a half volley. Half volley is where the ball is bouncing on the ground and just coming up, just there, okay? You don't have to do that. That is incredibly high risk and you have to have exceptional timing to do that. I think only Federer did that, and I don't know if he did that all the time even. I think he still let the ball rise up a little bit more. Make sure you try to avoid that half volley. You want to try and let the ball bounce up slightly more to maybe knee height or hip height, because that's the strike zone for most players, and then step in and crush the ball. If it's getting above your shoulder height, then I would probably say let the ball drop back down again if you can before you strike the shot, because anything above shoulder height is incredibly hard to hit, and you don't want to make tennis hard for yourself. Tennis is hard enough, don't make it any harder. So step back a little bit more, let it drop down so you can strike through the ball in your strike zone, which is for most players between the hip and the knee. What you want to make sure that you do when it comes to the hitting part is leg drive. So make sure you're loading, and then when you take your swing, you're obviously doing your normal take back, and when you drive forward, it's like a normal swing. It's just come down to timing. So that ball's bouncing. Like I mentioned before, you want to try and take it more on the rise, so around knee to hip height. So you're driving up and through your shot. Now this just comes down to timing. Now, when it comes to timing, I made a whole video on how to avoid framing the ball. You can go check that out at the top here. When it comes to timing, the only way to improve that is by practicing more. The more often you can be practicing hitting balls on frequent days, the better your timing will become. Now, one of the most common things I see with beginners, intermediates, and even some advanced players, when they tackle the high balls, I notice that they hit down with their strings facing more to the ground. Don't do this. If you do that, even if the ball goes over the net, it's going to land short. Now, unless you've used an incredibly good angle, which is very high risk, I might add, then the opponent is going to be able to step in and crush your shot, no matter how hard you've hit it. So you want to try and keep that ball a little bit deeper, at least mid-court, at least. If you can get it a little bit deeper, perfect. But you want to try and keep it at least mid-court, okay? So just after the service line would be perfect. Now, if you are closer to the net, okay, this is the variable. If you are closer to the net and the ball is sitting high above the net, then of course you can hit a little bit more down. I still wouldn't recommend going strings to the ground, but I would say maybe like a 45 degree, okay? Maybe a little bit more open. You just play around with it and see where the ball goes, okay? But you still want to make sure you're getting a little bit more depth out of your shot to keep your opponent at bay. If you're letting them step in at all, then they have the chance, they have the upper hand on you. You want to keep them on the back foot or keep them back. The last thing I want to add to this episode is the mental. Now, I'm only just going to touch on this. If you want to hear more, please let me know in the comments and I'll make more videos on the mental side of tennis, because that's something I absolutely love talking about. I just know that there's a little bit more beginners or intermediates that watch these videos. When you're playing these high balls in particular, you have to commit. Okay, so mentally focus on the ball, try and see that ball coming in slow motion. Now, I know it sounds a little bit silly or stupid if you've never heard anyone say that to you before, but you want to try and slow things down and relax in your mind. If you're panicking, the ball's coming, the ball's coming. If you're panicking in your mind, it's only going to seem like that ball's moving very quick when maybe it's actually not really moving as fast as you're making it seem to move. So you can definitely speed things up in your mind and you can slow things down in your mind. It's all to do with how relaxed or panicked you are. So you want to try and breathe calmly, watch that ball very clearly, and make sure you keep continuing to move properly. So take a deep breath when that high ball is coming, focus on where that ball is going to bounce, move the feet, and focus on where you want to hit the ball and drive it through. Attack it, go through it. Make that ball go to your target. Don't let any doubt or any criticism in your mind take you off your target of driving that ball to where you want it to go. You might hear some people talk about visualizing and attacking. That's exactly what I'm trying to say here. Visualize exactly where you want your ball to go and stay focused on that. Obviously watch the ball, but stay focused on where you want that ball to go, visualize it and attack it and make that ball go there. Don't try and guide it there. Absolutely crush it there. That's the only way to play high level tennis, is you have to commit to hitting your shots. There's one word that I always use in tennis in teaching my students is conviction. You must play with conviction. If you are coming out here and you're, can't get it there, can't get it, or just trying to push it there, then you're not playing with conviction and you're not hitting the ball. You're coming out here and you're just pushing the ball around. Now, that might be fun if you enjoy doing that, but tennis is a lot funner when you actually really giving it some. I think so anyway. That's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you got something out of this episode. And if you did, please remember to like and subscribe. That way I can catch you in the next episode. And maybe hit me up on Instagram too. I'd love to know about how your tennis journey is going. Maybe send a little video clip of you playing. That way I can check it out and maybe give you some more advice on your tennis journey. I'd love to my goal in tennis is really to help people improve their tennis game so they don't have injuries and they can have a life of fun tennis. Until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Cheers.